The marriage between Eric and Donna appears, on the surface, to be a quiet triumph, a rare oasis of tenderness within a family long accustomed to storms. Their days unfold with shared routines and soft reassurances, marked by an intimacy that does not demand spectacle. Yet beneath this calm, Eric carries a private weight that no amount of affection can fully lift. Retirement has stripped him of the rhythm that once defined his identity, leaving behind an unsettling stillness where purpose used to reside. The creative fire that fueled his ambition now flickers uncertainly, and with it comes a grief he cannot easily name. Donna senses this melancholy, even when Eric attempts to disguise it with smiles and gentle humor. She watches him linger in rooms he once commanded with confidence, touching familiar objects, as though they might answer questions he has not yet learned how to ask. Eric's sadness is not rooted in regret for the present, but in an unresolved reckoning with the past. The man who once built an empire now finds himself haunted by fragments of memory he had long buried beneath success and responsibility. His search for solace becomes an inward journey, one marked by reflection rather than action, and it is this vulnerability that sets the stage for the family's unraveling. While Eric seeks meaning in quiet contemplation, the universe answers him not with peace, but with revelation. Elsewhere within the Forrester world, a contrasting story of new beginnings unfolds. Daphne and Carter find themselves suspended in a moment that feels almost unreal, standing beneath the mistletoe as laughter and warmth blur the edges of uncertainty. Their connection is fresh, unburdened by the scars that define so many relationships around them. For Daphne, the attraction carries a sense of safety, a promise that her future might be built on mutual respect rather than inherited expectation. Carter, drawn to her sincerity and strength, allows himself to imagine a life unshadowed by compromise. In that brief exchange beneath the mistletoe, hope feels tangible, as though it might be enough to sustain them. Yet even as their bond deepens, an unseen fault line forms beneath their feet. Daphne, unaware of the truth that will soon surface, moves forward with a confidence rooted in incomplete knowledge. Her sense of self remains intact only because the past has not yet reached out to claim her. Carter, equally unaware, invests his trust in a relationship that seems grounded and uncomplicated. The irony is cruel: the closer they grow, the more devastating the eventual rupture will become. The discovery of Eric's old keepsake box arrives not as a dramatic intrusion, but as a quiet accident. Tucked away among forgotten belongings, the box contains remnants of a life Eric believed he had outgrown, letters yellowed with age, photographs softened by time, and tokens of a love he once chose to abandon. These objects do not shout their significance, they whisper, drawing attention through subtlety rather than spectacle. As the box is opened, the past breathes again, releasing questions that have waited decades for an answer. Within these keepsakes lies the key to a truth that will dismantle the family's understanding of itself. A faded photograph, a name scribbled in unfamiliar handwriting, a date that refuses to align with the narrative Eric has always told. Each detail adds weight to a realization that cannot be undone. The revelation does not strike immediately, it unfolds slowly, allowing dread to seep in before certainty arrives. When the old DNA test results are finally uncovered, they confirm what instinct has already begun to suspect: Eric is Daphne's biological father. The impact of this truth ripples outward with devastating force. For Donna, the shock is paralyzing. The man she loves, the marriage she believed was grounded in honesty, suddenly feels fragile, built upon omissions she never consented to bear. Her pain is not born of jealousy, but of betrayal, of realizing that Eric's past has always occupied space within their present, unacknowledged yet influential. Donna questions not only Eric's actions, but her own understanding of love, wondering how something so intimate could have remained hidden for so long. Daphne's response is equally shattering, though her grief takes a different shape. The ground beneath her identity collapses, as she confronts the knowledge that her origins are not what she believed. The man she admired as a patriarch becomes something far more intimate, and the implications of that shift overwhelm her capacity to process. Every memory, every assumption about her place within the family, demands re-evaluation. The future she envisioned with Carter suddenly feels uncertain, tainted by a truth neither of them was prepared to face. Carter, caught in the crossfire of this revelation, struggles to reconcile his feelings with a reality that defies expectation. His affection for Daphne remains, yet it is now entangled with a family dynamic that complicates every possibility. The romantic clarity they once shared fractures under the weight of lineage and legacy, leaving both uncertain whether love alone can bridge the divide that has opened between them. As the family absorbs the consequences of Eric's past, questions of inheritance and legacy rise to the forefront, threatening to exacerbate existing tensions. The Forrester name, long synonymous with stability and prestige, becomes a battleground of competing claims and unresolved loyalties. What was once a clear line of succession now blurs, forcing each member to confront their own insecurities and ambitions. The empire Eric built begins to reflect the fractures within its foundation, revealing how deeply personal history can shape public legacy. Ridge and Brooke step into this chaos with a shared determination to restore balance, yet even their efforts reveal the limitations of mediation. They urge understanding and forgiveness, advocating for unity in the face of upheaval. However, they cannot erase the pain that now defines the family's interactions. Eric, confronted with the full weight of his past decisions, must face the reality that love withheld is as damaging as love betrayed. His future, once mapped with confidence, now stretches before him uncertain and uncharted. The Forrester family stands at a crossroads, forced to redefine itself in the wake of truth. Relationships once taken for granted must be rebuilt, not on nostalgia or obligation, but on acceptance of a reality that refuses to conform to expectation. The chaos that envelops them is not merely a crisis to be resolved, but a reckoning that demands transformation. Whether they emerge stronger or irreparably divided remains an open question, one that will be answered not by denial, but by the courage to confront what has been hidden for far too long. The approaching return of the bold and the beautiful on Friday, December 26th, carries with it a deceptive sense of lightness, as though the holiday pause has softened the edges of every unresolved conflict. Yet beneath the glittering surface of beachside celebrations and professional milestones, something far more volatile is quietly taking shape. The storylines converging at this moment do not erupt with sudden violence or overt confrontation. Instead, they unfold through subtle glances, unspoken invitations, and emotional fractures that deepen with every polite smile. This is not a week defined by explosions, but by pressure, slow, persistent, and ultimately destabilizing. At the center of the beach house gathering stands Will, a host whose hospitality masks a complicated emotional landscape. The invitation list alone tells a story of deliberate inclusion and quiet calculation. What begins as a casual celebration quickly becomes a carefully staged intersection of lives that are far more intertwined than anyone is prepared to admit. Will's decision to open his coastal refuge to friends and allies carries with it a subconscious desire to hold together a sense of normalcy, even as that normalcy slips further out of reach. The beach house, bathed in ocean light and salt air, becomes less a place of rest than a crucible where unresolved grief, ambition, and desire begin to react with one another. Dylan's presence at this gathering is both expected and unsettling. Publicly, she is framed as someone bravely moving forward after an unimaginable trauma, a woman attempting to reclaim joy after surviving the psychological aftermath of Luna's death. The narrative insists that Dylan is not to blame, that the accident was unavoidable, that guilt serves no purpose. Yet Dylan herself does not experience these reassurances as truth. They echo hollowly, repeating what logic dictates, but failing to reach the emotional core where responsibility has already taken root. Her grief is not loud or performative, it is quiet, disciplined, and therefore far more dangerous. Rather than breaking her, it has reorganized her inner world around control, observation, and emotional substitution. Will and Elektra, bound by loyalty and a shared promise to support Dylan, genuinely want her to feel welcome. Their kindness is sincere, but it is also naive. They do not see how Dylan's need to belong has sharpened into something more urgent, how her desire for connection has become entangled with a need to replace what was lost. For Dylan, this weekend is not merely a chance to relax. It is an opportunity to step into a life that still feels intact, to stand close to stability, and imagine that proximity alone might grant her access to it. The overnight invitation becomes the first quiet rupture. What appears to be a generous, almost casual suggestion carries deeper implications, especially when Elektra insists on extending the moment, on stretching the night beyond its natural endpoint. In doing so, she unknowingly removes the final boundary between Dylan and the emotional space she has been circling. Staying the night transforms Dylan from guest to presence, from visitor to fixture, and that distinction matters more than anyone realizes. In soap opera terms, this is not a logistical decision, but a symbolic one, the crossing of a threshold that cannot be uncrossed. As the party unfolds, the beach house fills with laughter, music, and movement, yet the most consequential moments occur in silence. Finn's arrival with Steffi introduces a new gravitational force into Dylan's awareness. Finn embodies calm authority and moral clarity, qualities that draw attention without demanding it. When he steps beneath the outdoor shower, bare-skinned and unguarded in the open air, the moment is framed as visual spectacle for the audience, but narratively it functions as something far more disturbing. For Dylan, the sight does not register as simple attraction. It triggers recognition, an unspoken conviction that what she is witnessing represents something she has lost the right to possess, yet cannot stop wanting. Whether Dylan's fixation settles on Finn, Will, or Elektra remains deliberately ambiguous, and that ambiguity is precisely where the danger lies. Obsession, in its earliest stages, does not announce itself. It masquerades as curiosity, as admiration, as an innocent desire to understand. Dylan does not immediately decide who she wants to be close to, instead, she absorbs the dynamic of the group, studying where warmth flows most freely, where emotional bonds feel strongest. Her gaze lingers not with hunger, but with calculation, as if she is measuring the emotional architecture of the room and searching for a space she might occupy. While the beach house simmers with undercurrents of unease, an entirely different battle unfolds within the walls of Spencer Publications. Katie's professional storyline operates on a parallel emotional axis, one defined not by obsession, but by self-doubt sharpened through years of being underestimated. Naming her fashion brand should be a moment of triumph, yet it feels unreal to her, as though success has arrived without permission. She voices this disbelief to Bill, not as false modesty, but as a genuine expression of disorientation. Katie has spent so long doubting her own authority, that standing at the threshold of ownership feels almost fraudulent. Bill's response is unwavering. He insists on the reality of her success with a conviction that borders on defiance, as though he is not only reassuring Katie, but correcting the universe itself. In his certainty, there is pride, but also a subtle need to see Katie succeed as proof that belief, his belief, still has power. This exchange between them is tender yet charged, shaped by a shared history that cannot be erased. Bill's support is genuine, but it also binds Katie emotionally to him at a moment when she is trying to define herself independently. The arrival of Brooke and Ridge at Spencer Publications complicates this fragile equilibrium. Katie's presentation is poised and ambitious, her vision for the brand articulated with clarity and resolve. Yet Brooke's skepticism hangs in the air, unspoken but palpable. It is not rooted in cruelty, but in a long-standing pattern of doubt that has shaped the Logan sisters' dynamic for decades. Brooke's hesitation cuts deeper precisely because it comes from family. It suggests that no matter how far Katie rises, she will always be seen through the lens of who she used to be rather than who she is becoming. Donna's attempt to mediate reflects her role as emotional caretaker, the sister who believes harmony can still be restored through empathy and patience. Yet her efforts feel increasingly insufficient against the weight of accumulated resentment and misunderstanding. The tension between Katie and Brooke is not a temporary disagreement. It is the resurfacing of a long-suppressed fracture that will continue to widen as Katie's independence grows. Peace, in this context, becomes less a destination than a brief illusion, one that allows conflict to regroup before returning with greater force. Taken together, these storylines reveal a shared thematic core: the danger of underestimating quiet transformation. Dylan's grief does not scream, it studies. Katie's ambition does not demand validation, it advances despite doubt. The Logan sisters' conflict does not explode, it calcifies. And within these subtle shifts lies the promise of future chaos. The episodes ahead are not about what happens next, but about what has already begun, slowly, deliberately, and without warning. If this week proves anything, it is that the bold and the beautiful remains most powerful when it allows tension to breathe, when it trusts that the smallest choices, a night spent under the same roof, a name spoken aloud for the first time, a glance held a moment too long, can alter the trajectory of every character involved. And as these threads continue to intertwine, one truth becomes increasingly clear: the most shocking moments are not the ones we see coming, but the ones that feel inevitable only in hindsight.